Hier, il n'y a pas eu de fait notable du côté russe sur le front. Donc probablement que les états-majors étaient préoccupés ou étaient en train d'encaisser le choc. Enfin, maintenant nous venons de voir le bilan des pertes que la Russie a subies. Nous allons maintenant voir l'état du front avant de passer à autre chose.
How Ukrainians were trying to send all these trucks to different strategical objects of the Russian Federation. So these are the trucks before they were sent deep inside of the territory of Russia. Here we can see lots of drones. Here we can see the trucks themselves, the places where Ukrainians collected all those drones that later attacked the territory of Russia. And during this evening we got lots of videos how regular people, civilians, at least stopped 2 or 3 trucks over the entire territory of Russia and destroyed them. So it's very difficult to imagine how many targets the Ukrainians had in their list. As for the end of the 1st of June, we had just 2 targets, but obviously there were much more targets that Ukrainians were planning to attack, and something tells me that this is not the end and that we are going to see even more. So
voilà, et donc le résumé de Military Summary, c'est que les Ukrainiens avaient prévu beaucoup plus d'équipements, de drones, de remorques à infiltrer en Russie pour atteindre beaucoup plus de cibles. Et nous voyons que maintenant il y a des personnels ou des gens en Russie qui traquent ces camions, ces conteneurs ou ce qui ressemble à ça. Et que, soi-disant, il n'a montré qu'une vidéo où on voit les Russes en train d'essayer de s'attaquer à ce type de conteneurs. Apparemment, c'est le cas maintenant partout en Russie. On essaye de retrouver ces conteneurs et de les anéantir avant qu'ils n'aient le temps d'agir. Ce qui est sûr, c'est qu'il dit, on n'est pas encore sûr que tout ce que l'Ukraine a fait infiltrer en Russie ait été trouvé, ait été démantelé. Donc, on reste sur le qui-vive. Et moi, je suis assez d'accord avec lui parce que s'ils ont réussi à faire cette opération, s'ils ont réussi à montrer ces images, bah, il faut se souvenir de ce qu'ils faisaient à Kursk pendant le début de Kursk. La plupart du temps, c'était beaucoup d'images destinées à tromper les Russes jusqu'à ce que les Russes se rendent compte que c'était des leurs. Ils allaient loin, ils se filmaient. Après, ils laissaient des drones là-bas, ils fouillaient, et quand les Russes arrivaient, les Russes étaient attaqués par des drones et il n'y avait pas d'Ukrainiens. Et donc peut-être que là aussi, on a montré un certain type de conteneurs pour dévier l'attention des Russes vers ce type de conteneurs-là, pendant que d'autres sont peut-être en train de se rapprocher de leur cible et de préparer de nouvelles attaques. Et donc, pour l'instant, on ne sait pas qu'est-ce que... En tout cas, sur le point de vue de la surprise, l'Ukraine a pris l'avantage sur la Russie.
So this is the situation. Let's wait and see what is going to be next. Tomorrow, humiliated Russians will go to Istanbul, and this is going to be a crazy day. But as for now, let's continue discussion about the situation along the line of combat contact. And first, let's talk about the Sumy region, where the Russians continue their offensive operation, their summer offensive operation. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians destroyed several temporary.
Donc là, nous recommençons l'état du front. Nous allons voir l'état du front et on va commencer par le nord du front vers Sumy et nous allons redescendre vers le sud du front vers Kherson. Et donc là, on vous parle de la continuité de l'offensive d'été russe dans la zone de Sumy.
Deployment points of Ukrainian FPV drone operators. One of them was destroyed in the vicinity of the settlement of Voronezh. The second one was destroyed in the vicinity of the settlement of Krolevets. The Ukrainians were using these places, these drones and these operators to attack deep inside of the territory of Russia. and to attack the Russian forces in the Sumy region. Furthermore, today we got report that the Russians carry out another Iskander strike in the Dnipro region. We haven't added this map to this video to map, but we will do this later. We will discuss this video tomorrow. But as a result of this attack, the entire probably base camp of Ukrainian units was destroyed, and the head of infantry army of Ukraine he applied for to move him from his position. So we have very powerful strike from the Russians that we will discuss tomorrow, and the losses as well. As for the situation on the ground, the Russians continue their offensive, and during the previous 24 hours, the Russians improved their position significantly in the Sumy region by taking under control additional 3 lines, additional fortifications, and shortening the distance to the Sumy itself. Today, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation confirmed Russian control over Alexeyevka, but now it's very difficult to understand whether the Russians are going to move further. They have problems with logistic. Maybe the Russians would be forced to slow down for several days until the Russians are able to find a solution how to restore logistic, how to restore supply and support of their contingent in the northern part of Ukraine. When talking about the
Ok, bon, en résumé, les Russes continuent toujours d'avancer à Sumy, mais pour l'instant, on a un doute sur la suite des événements parce qu'on ne voit pas comment est-ce qu'ils pourraient continuer à avancer sans la logistique dont ils bénéficiaient. Donc, on ne sait pas s'ils vont ralentir. Ce qui est sûr, c'est qu'il faut attendre de voir comment ils vont rétablir la logistique pour soutenir l'effort vers le nord.
Kharkiv direction, we have another video in the vicinity of the settlement of Chuguev. Telling the truth, probably since the beginning of May, we got 10 or 15 reports that the Russians attacked the area in the vicinity of Chuguev with Iskander. And today, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation published this video where, as a result of reconnaissance operation, the Russians discovered another temporary deployment point of FPV drone operators. And as a result of attack, the base was destroyed. Ukrainians lost lots of drone launching systems and up to 30 drones themselves. Now let's discuss the situation along the line of combat contact.
Donc, vous voyez qu'il y a une grosse différence entre le résultat d'une opération préparée depuis longtemps. C'est un peu comme les surprises des Russes quand ils sont passés par des tunnels, ils ont atterri ou sont sortis derrière les Ukrainiens. C'est ce que nous avons comme résultat des attaques qui ont touché les avions. Ce n'est pas une opération qui date de maintenant, c'est une opération qui a été mise en place depuis longtemps et qui donne ce résultat maintenant. Mais ce résultat maintenant affecte un petit peu le front, mais au front, dans le quotidien, les Ukrainiens continuent de souffrir. La chose primordial à savoir, c'est est-ce que l'impact de cette infiltration qui a commencé à donner des résultats sera tel qu'elle va changer la nature des forces ou l'équilibre de forces au front. Ça, on ne le sait pas encore. Ce n'est que la réaction russe qui nous dira si ils ont significativement perdu en termes de bombardiers, en termes d'aviation, au point où ils ne peuvent pas soutenir l'effort comme avant, ou si, malgré cela, ils peuvent continuer comme avant. Et donc, sur le front, nous voyons que les Russes continuent stratégiquement à être supérieurs aux Ukrainiens, parce que là, on vous dit que dans cette zone-là qu'on vient de montrer, ils avaient découvert un point de lancement de l'armée ukrainienne et qu'ils ont tout fait péter avec des Iskander, et je crois qu'ils ont perdu plusieurs drones ou plusieurs opérateurs de drones.
And the most interesting updates are coming from the Syria's direction, where the Russians, after a very long operational pause, resumed their offensive operation. But this time, as you can see, the Russians are advancing from the southeast of the city of Siversk, not from the east and not from the northeast. During the previous 24 hours, we got lots of icons exactly from this area. This is the first video that was published by the Russians today, and here we can see how a Russian soldier raised the Russian flag on the village, in the area of the village of Ivana Darivka. And this video confirms Russian control over this territory. Later we got another video a bit to the north, and here we can see how another Russian soldier dropped some explosive on the territory of Ukrainian stronghold and began running away towards the safe place, and then there was a very heavy explosion. This video confirms that the Russians established complete control over this tree line, and based on this video we have adjusted the map. So the Russians are advancing to the north of Ivano-Darivka, and most likely with the purpose to restore control or to establish control over this road, the road between the village of Ivano-Darivka and the settlement of Verkhnykamenska. Today the Russians have already carried out artillery preparation and artillery attacks on these positions of the armed forces of Ukraine. Lots of positions were damaged and destroyed, and most likely during the next days the Russians will continue the ground operation as well. Furthermore, we had lots of videos from to the south of the city of Siversk along the railways from Vyivka to Siversk. Here we can see how the Russians were bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine. Most likely during the next 48 hours the Russians will try to attack the city of Siversk from the south. So the Russians will try to do something like this and to shorten the distance to the southern outskirts of the Siversk agglomeration itself. Now let's talk about the Konstantinovka direction. As for the previous 24 hours, the main updates we got from the area of the southeastern pocket along the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass canal. Today's Russian sources published this video, and in this video we can see how several Russian soldiers captured this building, captured this part of the village of Northern Deliivka, and raised the Russian flag and the flag of the unit that was responsible, that was involved in the offensive operation in this direction. Based on this video, most of the mappers adjusted the southern part of Deliivka and the territory to the south of the settlement, and later we got additional details from several pro-Russian resources that the Russians both captured the village and managed to move even further. This information was confirmed by several pro-Russian resources. So as for the end of this 1st of June of 2025, according to different sources, the Russians established complete control over this territory. If this information is correct, if the Russians indeed took under complete control all these territories, this means that the situation for the armed forces of Ukraine who are currently located in this pocket has immediately become, let's say, critical. Now they need to retreat from this pocket, otherwise the Ukrainians would be caught in cauldron. So we are waiting for additional updates, but most likely the very near future the Ukrainians will begin evacuation from this territory once again, otherwise the Ukrainians would be caught in cauldron by the Russians who are advancing from the south. So the situation in this direction is also very critical.
Donc, partout où on voit, partout où on regarde, on voit que les Russes avancent. Donc, il faut vraiment attendre de voir l'impact de l'opération ukrainienne sur le front du conflit. Parce que sur le front du conflit, la situation semble difficile. Vous voyez ici, on va venir ici parler de cette poche ici. Mais pendant ce temps-là, il y a encore une nouvelle poche qui est en train de se faire où les Ukrainiens pourraient être piégés.
When talking about the Kliban-Byksky direction during the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything special, and we see that most likely the situation was stabilized. Either the situation was stabilized or the Russians are regrouping right now before the beginning of another wave of offensive operation. The Ukrainians had reminded you during the previous days redeployed lots of units in this area, and most likely this is the reason why the Russians are in a pause right now. It's very interesting when the Russians are going to resume their offensive. When talking about the South Donetsk direction, we haven't received almost anything from this area as well. The Russians continue bombing and attacking Ukrainian positions that the Russians are planning to attack in the very near future. This video we got from the village of Something Special, and we see that
ici, là, le front n'a pas changé, n'a pas vraiment bougé. Donc apparemment les Ukrainiens sont en train de se préparer ici et les Russes sont en train de se remobiliser dans cette zone. Donc il n'y a pas vraiment eu d'évolution. Je pense que ce qui a été vraiment choquant, c'est l'opération ukrainienne. Je pense que les Russes ont besoin d'un moment pour se remobiliser parce que franchement,
most likely the situation was stabilized. Either the situation was stabilized or the Russians are regrouping right now before the beginning of another wave of offensive operation. The Ukrainians had reminded you during the previous days redeployed lots of units in this area, and most likely this is the reason why the Russians are in a pause right now. It's very interesting when the Russians are going to resume their offensive. When talking about the South Donetsk direction, we haven't received almost anything from this area as well. The Russians continue bombing and attacking Ukraine positions that the Russians are planning to attack in the very near future. This video we got from the village of Kamar, and in this video we can see how the Russians were reducing to ruins the village of Kamar. We expect the beginning of Russian offensive in the very near future. As for the Zaporozhye direction, during the previous 24 hours, according to information we have, the Russians destroyed the main bridge in the city of Orekhov. But if you remember, yesterday the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, Syrsky, reported that the Russians began their offensive operation in the Zaporozhye direction. But as for the end of the 1st of June of 2025, we haven't received anything that can confirm the beginning of Russian offensive. When talking about the Kherson direction, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians continue bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine using missiles and bombs with the purpose to destroy as many as possible FPV drone positions and operators. So tomorrow, the negotiation process in Istanbul will continue. The Russians and the Ukrainians.
Voilà, donc le résumé de cette journée de dimanche. Donc si vous regardez la carte de Xavier Moreau, le bulletin de Xavier Moreau par rapport à la guerre, vous verrez que sur la semaine, les Russes ont avancé. Mais ça, c'était un point par rapport à dimanche. Et donc, hier, il n'y a pas eu de fait notable du côté russe sur le front. Donc, probablement que les états-majors étaient préoccupés ou étaient en train d'encaisser le choc ou étaient en train de préparer la riposte. Donc, ils n'ont peut-être pas trouvé important d'avancer sur le front ou de pousser à d'autres attaques. Et donc, la semaine qui vient et la semaine d'après, nous en dirons probablement plus sur la réponse russe à cette opération de déstabilisation, en tout cas à cette embuscade brillamment menée par les Ukrainiens. Ça, il faut le leur reconnaître. Nous n'avons pas eu beaucoup d'opérations d'infiltration des Russes dans ce conflit. Nous avons plutôt un rouleau compresseur russe qui continue à broyer des Ukrainiens sur le front. Mais par contre, ça, c'est vraiment... Ah oui, on a eu quelques opérations. Oui, on a eu les opérations russes de quand ils sont rentrés dans les tunnels qui ont été brillamment menés aussi. Et donc, on va dire que les Ukrainiens essayent de rétablir l'équilibre. Les Russes leur ont surpris par 2 fois. Pour l'instant, ça, c'est la plus grande surprise que les Ukrainiens aient fait à la Russie depuis le début de ce conflit. Donc, on va dire qu'on a 2-1. C'était tout pour la vidéo, en tout cas par rapport au front. Et maintenant, nous allons passer à l'actualité.